You guys have been loving a video I shared a while back showing you some different stop motion animation concepts. So today we're going to do an updated version of that video with 3 new techniques, and these are going to be a little bit more advanced so that you can create even more captivating videos. The first technique today involves having 2 elements within your scene interacting with each other. I shared this video on my Instagram a while back where I've implied that the watermelon slice is opening the can by tapping it, and then you see the glass filling up with liquid. We're going to replicate this exact same technique today using this orange flavored kombucha beverage. Alright, so there are a few things we want to keep in mind as we're prepping our scene to capture this animation. The first being, we want to make sure that our can doesn't move throughout the entire duration of the video. So to ensure this, I'm just going to use a few small pieces of sticky tack and just kind of press them around the back edge of the can here and the surface, just to make sure that that doesn't move while we're shooting the video. And so our can here is also completely full of liquid, which is also going to help us to weigh it down. But you may have noticed that I've already opened it, and there are a couple of reasons for this. The first being, if you imagine opening a can, you're going to have to apply a little bit of pressure to get it to crack that seal. And what we don't want to do is have to apply pressure while shooting a stop motion like this, because that may result in applying enough pressure to actually move the can from its original position. So we want to do whatever we can to prevent moving it. So I've already opened it, and then this is also going to allow us, as we start to pull this tab up as we're creating the animation, to create nice, even, equal increments each time we move that tab up just a little bit. All right, so we're just about ready to start shooting. I just wanted to note that I have manually set my focus point to our can here, and then the front of my glass is also lined up with the can so that both items in the frame are in clear focus all throughout. And then camera settings for this are 1/100th of a second for the shutter speed, f8, and ISO is set to 500. All right, let's roll. So I need to make sure I don't bump these little palms while I'm doing this. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm just kind of looking to see where my orange slice is going to start to come into the frame. So it looks like right about here. And then I want to check and see what kind of angle I want it to hit the can at. So here we just have kind of a straight on angle. We could get a little more creative and stand it up. I don't think I like that so much. And then let's just try to turn it inward a little bit. I think this angle looks nice because it shows a little bit more of the rind here. So I'm just going to pull this back out of frame now. And that's about where we want to start it. All right, so just gonna grab our clean plate shot here before the orange enters the frame. And now we're just gonna gradually start to slide this in, making sure that each movement is about the same distance as the one that was prior. And then looks like we got about 2 more movements here before it hits the can. We got 1. And then, so this right here where the orange is touching the can, this is the point of impact. So this is where we're going to very gently, without moving our can, the tab here is going to point, we're just going to point it just about straight up. So once we play the video back, the orange hits the can and that tab immediately comes up. So we're going to grab that shot. Looks like the orange has now opened the can. And then we're gonna just gradually back this orange back up while slowly lowering the tab back to its original position. And I think that just really helps to sell this effect that the orange has opened it and now the tab is just going back down. Okay, so each individual shot is just a little bit of orange movement and a little bit of tab movement. And then I'm gonna see if I can push this tab down just a little bit more. I'm gonna try to incorporate a piece of sticky tack here just to keep it down long enough for me to grab a shot. So I'm just gonna place it on the underside of our tab here. We gotta move quickly. We got it! All right, so because the sticky tack doesn't hold it that long, I need this tab to not be visible for this entire next part. So I'm just gonna rip it off. There, who needs it? Now is the fun part. We're gonna fill our glass with some ice cubes, and then I'm gonna show you guys how I fill it up with liquid. So I think we'll just do 1 or 2 ice cubes at a time. Just being careful not to bump our glass here. And we'll do a couple more. That seems like a good amount. And so now we're gonna fill it up with liquid. So For this step, I like to use a fresh can of liquid so that we can capture it when it's nice and fizzy in the glass there. So I do have the same product here. This is just a different can. They've since updated their branding here. So I'm just going to gradually pour this into our glass and just capture the glass filling up in small increments. So this can is actually, and this is a trick you may have seen from a prior video, the can is too full. If I tip it over right now, it's probably gonna spill over the sides. So I'm gonna go dump out a little bit of the liquid in this can and then we'll come back and fill up our glass. If you make a mess while filming a stop motion video, you're not gonna be a happy photographer. So let's prevent messes where we can. So I'm just gonna pour a little bit in. And then I wanna capture a little bit of fizz, but not too much. So I'm gonna let it settle just a bit and then capture the shot. I'm just gonna do the same thing each time. Okay, I think we can probably stop there for the final video, but I'm just gonna do one more for good measure. And we can always leave that out of the final edit. Okay, perfect. Now I know you guys are gonna wanna see the editing process for the videos that we're creating today, so I'm actually gonna link that for you in a separate video in the description below. But in the meantime, here is how this one turned out. The next technique I want to show you is really going to add some life to your animations, and I love to use this one in particular to reveal what's inside of a package or a wrapper. So that's exactly what we're going to do today, and we're going to be featuring a banana flavored snack bar. Now if you have your notifications turned on for my channel, you may have caught this video I shared where we have the bar doing a little bit of spinning and bouncing action before landing on the surface to reveal what's inside of the wrapper. So this is exactly what I'm going to show you guys how to do today, and while you could certainly invest in some software that would allow you to track these movements with more accuracy, I want to show you that you can also achieve something like this using what you already have on hand. So as usual, I'm going to be tethering my camera to the EOS utility. This is the free tethering software that I downloaded directly from the Canon website, and then we're just going to be using some sticky tack and coins to create that bouncing effect. So same as the last video, I'm gonna set my lens to manual focus, and reason being is we don't want it to refocus every time the bar moves a little bit closer to the lens. It's gonna create this weird cropping effect that's not gonna look very seamless. So in order to combat that, we wanna make sure that we choose an f-stop that's gonna keep that bar and label in perfect focus no matter how close it gets to the camera. So the best way to achieve this, I'm gonna set my f-stop to f14, ISO is at 500, and then shutter speed is pretty low, it's at 1/50th of a second, and that's because we've got our camera here on the C-stand, so we really don't need a fast shutter speed. So I've got a stack of quarters here that we're gonna be using, and this is what's going to allow us to elevate the bar to make it look like it's kind of bouncing off the surface and then landing back down on top of it. So what I'm gonna do is place a coin directly in the center of my frame here, and this is where I would recommend, if you're using a tethering software, see if it has a grid feature that you can turn on, and same with your camera. If you're looking directly at the screen on your camera, turn on that grid mode so that you can see exactly where the center of your frame is, and this is what's going to really help you track those movements with a little bit more accuracy. So this coin here is going to serve as the starting point for our bar, and it will also be our reference so that we can make sure that we have that bar directly in the center of the frame as we're working on this video. So I'm just making sure that everything is centered within my EOS utility here. Okay, that looks great. So this is going to serve as the center point, and then that's how we know that this is where we want to place our bar. All right, so we've got our bar perfectly centered in the frame here, and I wanted to pull over the tethering software here so that you guys can kind of see what this looks like. You can see the gray lines here, but that's just the grid feature that I have turned on, which helps me compose my images. And then I also have these bright blue guides turned on, and having these turned on is really just helping me make sure that I have the same amount of space on every side of the bar so that each shot looks nice and centered. So I've got the bar sitting on our base coin there, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab that as our first shot. And now all I'm gonna do is just gently insert a coin underneath the bar, lining it up perfectly with that first one to give it that nice lift effect. I'm gonna make sure that the bar is still centered in our frame, and then I'm gonna give it this nice little tilt. And that's our second shot. And what I love about adding this tilt to a technique like this is it gives you a little bit more wiggle room. It's not so important that your subject is in the perfect precise location in order to sell the effect. It just gives you a little bit more to work with when you're editing together the final video. And so now what I recommend doing as you're taking every single shot, just to ensure that your movements are nice and consistent and accurate, is to go through and just play through your images to see how those are looking. This way, if you don't rotate it enough, for example, you can go back in and give it a little nudge and take another shot. But so far, these 3 images are looking great. So all I'm gonna do now is just continue to add coins underneath, add a little rotation, and then I'll show you guys what we do at the end to reveal the opened bar. So I think we're gonna stop here as far as the stacking. I think we used a total of 6 coins here. So now this is where we're going to introduce the bar outside of its wrapper. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up this one here that I have as a spare. And we actually don't need to recapture the coins being removed one by one, because what we're gonna do when I take that into Premiere Pro is I'm just going to reverse each of these movements to have it landing back on the surface. So all we really need to do from here now is I'm gonna take our wrapped bar off of here, take off all of the coins except that first one, and now you can really see why it's important to have that as your base. And this is gonna show us exactly where we need to place the unwrapped bar. So now I'm just gonna center this right here. Grab a shot, give that a little more of a tilt, right? And then hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, like I said, there's gonna be a separate video for the editing portion, but this is just gonna save you from having to capture the same shots with it rotating back to the original position. All we have to do is reverse that, have it landing here so that you can see the open bar, but this is how this animation turned out. Our final technique today is a really great option for showcasing an entire product line or something like a range of flavors. In this video, you can see a hand clicking the button of a computer mouse, and with each click, the wrapper disappears from a bar to reveal what's inside. The most important aspect of capturing this video was to make sure that the mouse didn't move throughout. To prevent this, I secured the mouse with some sticky tack, and then I laid out open versions of each bar in the same order that they appeared wrapped in my frame so that I could easily swap them out with each click. Okay, so my right hand is obviously going to be doing the clicking in this video here, and once it's in place, this hand is not going to move other than the index finger moving up and down for the clicking motion. Now, obviously, when you're using a computer mouse in real life, you don't really need to lift your finger to press the button, but that is how we're going to sell this effect. So we're going to be capturing separate shots of the finger lifting up, and then as it lands down on the button, this is when the bars are going to change out. So let's start by just grabbing a shot with my hand on the mouse. And now I'm going to go ahead and lift that finger and take a separate shot here. And now we're ready to make our first swap. So I'm going to swap out the top purple bar here. And this is where it helps to have a studio assistant so you can make sure that your placement is nice and accurate. But we're going to work with what we've got today. So I'm going to make the change. And now before I capture my shot, I'm going to go ahead and lower my finger so that it looks like we're clicking to make the change. Grab that shot. And now it looks like we've gone ahead and clicked the mouse and the bar has changed from the wrapped one to the unwrapped one. So now we just need to repeat that 2 more times for these other 2 flavors. So again, we're just gonna lift the finger. Now let's swap out our middle one here. And this one is directly in the center of the frame, so it's a little bit easier to see where it's supposed to land. And now we'll lower the finger again. Perfect, and now we just have 1 more. So we're gonna raise it 1 more time, capture a shot. I'll just go ahead and lower it now, and now we can swap out the final bar here. I'm just gonna line it up. Pull this one away, scoot this in, making sure that the distance between each of the bars is the same. And now we can capture our final shot with my finger lowered onto the button. And now here's how our final video turned out. So there we have it, 3 more stop motion concepts for you guys to try out in your own studios. And as always, if you do, don't forget to tag me on Instagram so I can see what you're working on. I will be linking another video for you in the description if you're interested in seeing how any of these edits came together. So leave me any questions you have. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave today, and I will see you guys in the next video.